Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I'm here to talk about my judgment for the Octafinals of the Booktube Prize. I was assigned to judge Fiction Group G, so in that group we went over Bunny by Mona Awad, Miracle Creek by Angie Kim, Disappearing Earth by Julia Phillips, The Other Americans by Laila Lalami, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Vuong, and The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. And the way that I'm going to approach this is I'm going to talk about each book, give you a little bit of a summary and my thoughts, and at the end of the video I'm going to rank them from 6th to 1st. And the first one, I read them in order that they were listed, because they all came at the same time. So the first one that I read is Bunny by Mona Awad, and this pertains to an MFA student by the name of Samantha Heather Mackey, who's going to college at Vuong University. She is in her capstone course. She's going for an MFA in creative writing, and the only other students in her class are part of this cultish fraternity-like group. They are all going for their MFA in creative writing as well. They refer to themselves as bunnies. They very much think as one. They are somewhat possessed in their interaction with one another. And the only friend that Samantha has up until this point is a girl by the name of Ava. But the bunnies, per se, they invite Samantha to their smut salon, and the whole adventure, if you want to call it that, pursues from there. And the only thing that would give this book another sense of consideration is the fact that, looking at it allegorically, one could see it as an allegory for the process of putting together a finished product and the way that people respond to it when it comes to writing. But as far as this book is concerned, I thought it was terrible. I question why this even made it to the top 48 of the Booktube Prize, because I thought that Samantha had a very poor perspective. I especially couldn't stand when she was taking on the perspective of the bunnies, because she was it was almost stereotypical of the socialite, and the way that the others were responding were very, it was just so nails on a chalkboard irritating, the way that their cultishness and interactions were concerned. The fact that there's this assumption that an MFA student who is generally in their mid-20s is acting like a cliquey high schooler is just insulting. I think that so many things about this book were insulting, be it their perspective on millennials, their perspective on creative writing majors, their perspective on people in the upper class that are spoiled. I think there are so many generalizations about this book that Uh, it just was a slog to get into. It was just so... It was painful. And the allegory is the only thing that gives this any consideration of wanting to look over this again. And it would only be from an examination standpoint, because there is nothing that is really going to change my mind about this. The next book that I read was Miracle Creek by Angie Kim, and this pertains to a court case that deals with the arson of an oxygen chamber that's used as therapy for those with autism and other conditions that would call for it. Pak and Young Yu are Korean immigrants, and they have put together a miracle submarine in order to address the situation and help with their approach to a cure. When the submarine is set on fire, the two of the people that are in there are killed. One of which is one of the moms. In particular, it's TJ's mom, Kit. And then the other one is one of the autistic patients, Henry Ward. And his mother, Elizabeth, is initially accused as the person that set the fire. But we also get we get several perspectives within this piece. It's very much, there's an ongoing theme where a lot of these books are sorted by chapter, by perspective. So we get Pak and Young Yu, we get their daughter, Mary's perspective, we get Elizabeth's perspective. We get Matt, who is the overseeing doctor. We get his perspective. And it's very interesting to get the different sides to each story. Each of the characters in their own way makes a decent case, but none of them are likable in any which way. They're perfectly flawed, I would say, is the best way to put it. What I liked about this was that, and I liked how it really kept you, I think it did a great job with the mystery element, and I really give Angie Kim a great deal of credit for having the level of tolerance to put up with probably having to do background research and viewership on Barney and Friends, because TJ, the only way that they could get him to do things, be it through therapy or take his medication, is through Barney. And I don't know if I could put up with it, or the research that pertained to that. The one major gripe that I had about this book is the way that they perceived Elizabeth. And I don't want to give too much away, but I see deals of parallel between her and Severus Snape from the Harry Potter series, in how even if Elizabeth, I'm not going to tell you whether or not she was the killer or not. That would be something you'd have to check out for yourself. But what I will say is that she is not she's not a good person. She only does things not for the... She may do things to help improve her son, but she's doing them more so to make herself happy. She's more concerned about her well-being than she is about her son. On one hand, her son's well-being is essential to hers, but she seems to put herself before she has that ultimatum train of thought that she comes before he does, and it does do it is very honest in how it explores the psyche of adults and their the way that they interact with kids and the way that they respond to kids that have particular hardships, which some of it is, I think the fact of the matter is the message that it tried to leave can be a little bit head-scratching and somewhat misleading. The next book that I read is Disappearing Earth by Julia Phillips, and this pertains to various people on the Kamchatka Peninsula on the northeastern edge of Russia. It starts out with the disappearance of two young girls, but each chapter, which was released separately in various outlets, be it magazines or journals, they pertain to different people within the peninsula and their very own lives and their response, very often a brief response to the girls that disappeared. We do not get the mother's perspective until later on. With this book, there is a great success in the way that it depicts the lives of different characters and their response to their very own circumstances. And I think it says a lot about how we very much live our own lives and are very concerned about our very own lives, and not so much about if it doesn't pertain to us or things that are connected to us. It really everything else is not as worrisome. But I think that this played better as separate pieces. I think that once it came together, it really didn't hit the mark. It really left us with a lot of dead ends. I think that that could be said about life, but I think that the way that it wrapped up was very vague and foggy, and I feel that ultimately it was something that played well as I think it had the potential to be great, but it ultimately was just lukewarm. Next book that I read is The Other Americans by Laila Lalami, and this follows the response to the death of a Moroccan immigrant by the name of Driss Garawi. He was hit by a car on his way home from the diner that he worked at, and the perspectives in this book follow those that are responding, be it his daughter Nora, who's a jazz composer who's returning to help sort things out. His wife and now widow Miriam. There's Nora's sister Salma, who doesn't have as much of a first-person account, but still has one at some point in the piece. Ifran, who is he's the one person that witnessed the accident, but he does not want to come forward because he is an undocumented immigrant who is fearing that he would be deported if he made himself known. Then we have a friend of Nora's from high school named Jeremy, who was also a veteran in the Iraq War. There's a detective by the name of Erica Coleman. And there is the owner of the bowling alley that's right next door to the diner, Anderson Baker, and also his son AJ, who works at the bowling alley as well. And there's a great diverse cast because you have someone who is Moroccan. You have Ifran, who is Mexican. You have Erica Coleman is a black female detective. Jeremy is of Polish descent, and then the Bakers, they're white. But I think that when it came to the use of perspective, this one did so much better than Miracle Creek in how it had a great wide array, and we really got a greater sense of what was going on and the pieces to the picture. I thought I was very engaged in. I was very engaged in this book. I really had a great deal of interest, consideration, the pieces that were put together. I think that she did a great job writing writing each of these characters with their background being taken into account. And I think that it was just interesting to see how differently people responded to one another and how they looked in another person's chapter. I think that I really got a great deal of perspective within this piece, and I think that this was a delight to engage. Next book that I read is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, who is known more for his poetry, but this is his first jump into writing a novel, and there was just something so extraordinary about this. This pertains to the speaker Little Dog, who is writing a letter to his mother, Rose, and it's told in a stream of thought, and the way that he recalls things is the way that he jots them down. This isn't in any chronological order. It's not in medias res. It's not starting from one point and looking back. This particular novel sees Little Dog talking about different parts of his life as they come to him and how he sees them fit. And it's just the way that he writes it, be it the approach or the use of words, is just magnificent. It's haunting, but at the same time gripping. It's delightful, but at the same time heartbreaking. Uh, it's just, I think that the different characters within this piece, his relationships, with his grandparents, his grandmother Lon is just a pip. I just enjoy reading about her, and talks about his grandfather, whom his grandmother met in Vietnam. He talks about his boyfriend Trevor that he makes while he is working on the tobacco farm, and it's just so raw. I just really this is just such a delight to be able to pick this up. The last book that I read is Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead, and this is based off of a true story and pertains to a young black man by the name of Elwood Curtis. He is a senior in high school who has picked up the opportunity to take college classes, and for him in his situation, he's done a heck of a job getting to where he was. And he lives with his grandmother Harriet, but on his way to a college course, he hitches a ride with somebody in a stolen vehicle. And he ends up going to this juvenile reformatory school, which turns out to be much more heinous and immoral than it presents itself as being. And the story goes on from there. This was set up so well. I think that Elwood was likable. I think that it was interesting, the direction that Colson Whitehead took with this piece. My gripe about it is the fact that it left a bit more out than needed. I think that it reminded me of those episodes of Cops where they're in a very tough situation, where they're in a very enticing situation. There's a high and dangerous car chase, and then by the time we reach the criminal and the car was stalled, we reach the suspect's already been detained. It's not like we see the suspect being tackled to the ground and getting placed in handcuffs. It skips that kind of way, where it would have been interesting to see the result to Elwood being having to deal with the process, and other instances where they could have described it a little bit more, but in many cases it's either flashed through or skipped over, and I think that it takes away from the detail. And it disappointed me there, but I still think that this was a very enlightening piece, especially the way that Elwood approached life. Now it's time for me to rank the books in order from 6th to 1st. In 6th place, I put Bunny by Mona Awad. In 5th place, Disappearing Earth by Julia Phillips. 4th and 3rd was the toughest for me because they both were equally intriguing. They had their both of them, to me, I had equal thoughts about them, and I had pros and cons for both. But ultimately, I went with The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead in fourth, and Miracle Creek by Angie Kim in third, because I thought that there was more substance to Miracle Creek, even though I personally enjoyed reading The Nickel Boys slightly better, but I think that based off of the quality of the work, Miracle Creek did better. Number 2, I picked The Other Americans by Laila Lalami. And number 1, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Vuong. And I thought that I was going to film the video before the results came out, but Robert was very diligent and he got them out pretty quickly. So I am filming this knowing the results, and I am very happy with how my heat went. And I think that the 3 that advanced deserve to do so. Even if I ranked Miracle Creek higher than The Nickel Boys, it was a very tough situation. I'm just happy that On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous and The Other Americans made it through, and Disappearing Earth and Bunny, I'm especially happy that Bunny got the boot, and Disappearing Earth had good traits, but I think that it was the right decision to that it didn't make it into the quarterfinals. But thank you for watching this video. I hope you check out some more videos from this channel. I will be judging a nonfiction group in the quarterfinal round, and I already placed my order, and the books should be on their way. Thank you, and for now, keep reading.